You played with Patrick Mahomes, but your route was unconventional. We talked about the draft, but it's not just as Lebo mentioned. It used to be 12 rounds, then it was 8 rounds, now it's down to 7 rounds, and there's some great players that make it to the league that don't get drafted. That was your path. You played at Alabama, and you put up some good numbers, and you end up with the Kansas City Chiefs. Tell me what that experience was like, ultimately landing with the Chiefs and carving out a role with that team on special teams and as a receiver.
Yeah, so transferring to Alabama from Bowling Green, I had a lot of success at Bowling Green as a receiver, put up big numbers, and thought I'd take that leap down to SEC country and play for Coach Saban. And it's kind of that high risk, high reward. If I play really well and do a lot of good things, I have a good chance of kind of showing, hey, I can do this against the best players in the country. And our style of play on offense that year was a lot of running. It was Jalen Hurts' freshman year, and I think he broke so many records running the ball, so we weren't really throwing the ball. And for me, that was kind of a culture shock. So I had to figure out different ways to kind of fit in and be a part of the team to win a championship. And we lost in the championship, but that championship mentality of doing kind of whatever it takes to be successful. And that was my mindset. And like Steven said, going special teams route. And that's something I took pride in at Alabama. And that was kind of my mindset. Hey, I don't know if I can just play receiver in the NFL. I think the special teams is going to be a big factor. So draft comes, and obviously I don't get drafted. It's a couple long days, and you don't really know what's going to happen because as a college kid, your dream is to play in the NFL. So you're kind of just hoping that anybody calls. And I had a couple free agent offers, and one of them was the Chiefs. So I look at kind of the Chiefs receivers at the time, and it was a bunch of young guys. Jeremy Maclin was the oldest guy on the roster, and it was Tyreek's rookie year just passed, so all those guys were kind of still under the radar type guys, and I'm like, all right, I think this is a spot where I can go to kind of make a splash. And obviously it worked out for me. Played here for 5 years, and the relationships that I built, the guys that I was part of, championship team, Coach Reed, Pat Kells, Blake Bell, Tyreek. I mean, all those guys are awesome. But like I said, those relationships, the culture that was with the Chiefs, I think that's why you see the success that they have today. Is it starts with Coach Reed and then goes down to Pat. That culture that those guys bring in, everybody wants to be successful and everybody wants to be a good teammate.
And I told you we're going to bring up someone drafted later in the 8th round. I got one right here. 11th round. They used to do it that long. Kendall Gammon here, who special teamer, no doubt about it, Pro Bowler, played in the Super Bowl, called the Super Bowl. Tell us about what the draft days were like for you, where you get picked, and like the path you took to get where you are.
Yeah, well, this is going all the way back to 1992, and there were 12 rounds back then. I was 11th round pick, 291st person taken, so right away feeling really good about myself. But as I think back about that, I was holed up in a little Holiday Inn with my agent, and of course the first 2 days nothing goes on. I found out about it. I did get a call from Tom Donahoe, and former defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs in his first year with the Steelers, which was Bill Cowher, that they were going to draft me. Then I see it come across the scroll that I've been drafted, and that's how uneventful it really was. Now, something that people don't know about that I think they would find interesting is with Pittsburgh, they had a guy who was the equivalent of Mitch Holthus, voice of the Chiefs. He was the voice of the Steelers. His name was Myron Cope. He was about this tall. He's a cute little bugger. And absolutely, he invented the terrible towel. Well, the Steelers, and as you might imagine, I mean, 10th, 11th, 12th rounds, not that important. Not very many people make it. Well, the Steelers had kind of a tradition where they would let Myron Cope take the 11th and 12th round picks. So I wasn't even picked by the damn Pittsburgh Steelers. I was picked by the radio voice of the Steelers. But fortunately, 291st person taken, 11th round. I played 15 years, less than 8 people have played that long. So I figured out a way to hang around and make a living snapping the ball between my legs. I was a backup offensive lineman. At one point, I weighed 310 pounds. So back then, if it wasn't bolted down, I was eating it. But all the same, if I couldn't have snapped, I never would have been in the league.
How about that? Terrible towel man, drafted Kendall Gammon.
All right, let's see what the fans are thinking here. So on Thursday, in the first round, pick number 31 of the Chiefs Day there, despite a round of applause, do you want the Chiefs to take a wide receiver?
No.
One guy over here, he's an offensive lineman. Protect the franchise. An edge rusher to get after the quarterback. or something else? Something else? Anybody? All right.
Long snapper.
That covers it. All right. Long snapper. Anyone? Kendall's like, all right. So Gary, we talk a lot about this on the show. So you know what the Chiefs look for in wide receivers. We've talked about, you think that maybe there's still an opportunity down the road. Maybe DeAndre Hopkins ends up with the Chiefs. We'll see. But you've got Quentin Johnston that's out there. You've got Zay Flowers who worked out with the Chiefs. Chiefs will probably have to draft up or trade up to draft him. You're a former wide receiver. Are you locked in on a wide receiver for this draft? Do you think it's offensive line? Do you think it's edge rusher? What do you think the Chiefs are going to do on Thursday night?
As a receiver, I think, especially seeing that Zay Flowers just worked out with Pat, and it was kind of requested that he go down to Texas and throw some routes with Pat. All I've heard is everybody's been raving about him. Pat raved about him. Kelsey's raved about him. Blake Bell said good things. So if I had to put money on it, I think that they make a move. And I feel like Beach is kind of that guy that he's not going to sit at 31. He's the guy. He's the type of guy that's going to move around and make something happen. So I can see Zay Flowers, and I think he's that perfect receiver that really runs routes. I don't think we've seen that since I've been here. There hasn't been a receiver that necessarily is that pristine route runner. He seems like he really is that route runner, and it'll be really fun to watch him with that.
A lot of fun. All right, Kendall, let's talk about when the Chiefs, give you a little tidbit of my life. I'm from Kansas City. Independence, right? In Independence, Missouri. And I was born...
Let's give a round of applause for Independence.
Right. So I was born on February 1st, 1970. That was 3 weeks after the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, in the Super Bowl IV. And so we go down to Miami, we say this out loud? We shared a hotel room for 8 days, Steve St. John. We're saving money for the company. And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl on February 2nd. So it was 50 years and 1 day after I was born, the Chiefs won. So my whole life, I'm just like a lot of people in this room, you lived their whole life, and the Chiefs hadn't won. Now listen, I didn't blood, sweat, and tears and all that stuff for the team. Even if you weren't playing for the team, you're calling the game, what did it mean for someone who did put the uniform on for the team to be a part of that call?
Yeah, it's really special, and it's a great question, because I was fortunate enough to play for another great family team, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Rooney. So to come here and be with Lamar and Clark and the Hunt family and what they do, and they're so special in what they did. And knowing the disappointment that had been here for so long, I mean, it was just special. You knew history was being made, not just because you're winning the Super Bowl, because that's history in and of itself, but to be it 50 years later, it's just like everything aligned, and it was amazing. It was surreal, and it's something that you dream about as a player. And you know, I played in the Super Bowl. I don't remember the score of that. It's still too soon, but having a chance to broadcast the Super Bowl and a Chiefs win in my hometown, because I'm basically from right around Wichita, Kansas, and I went to Pittsburgh State. I'm a Gorillas. So yeah, it was a special time, and that's what Chiefs Kingdom is. I mean, that's what the Hunts have made. That's what everybody here in Kansas City. And you talked about it earlier. Is people come through this place, and even if they go somewhere else, they come back or they retire here and they stay, because it is a special place to be. And it's fabulous. It's not flyover country. It is not. It is the best place to live in America.
So on the topic of winning a championship, you know, Gehrig, you weren't here long, but you were introduced to the heartbreak of Chiefs fans in that AFC Championship loss to the Patriots. You should have had a fumble recovery that could have turned the game around, but the officials were blind. I'm sorry, that's the way I saw it. But and then we all went through that. But then the next year, you're part of the breakthrough and winning that championship and being in that parade and just being a part of that team that brought their first title in 50 years. Take me through that, what that was like to experience with those players that, like you said, you formed such great bonds with in this town.
Yeah, I think the AFC Championship really lit a fire under a lot of people. You know, you get that close, you have that taste, and you're like 1 or 2 plays away, and you go in the offseason. I think Pat said it in a couple of interviews. I mean, he's never been so hungry in his life. Kelsey, the same thing. He wants to do everything in order to make it to that Super Bowl and ultimately win it. And that whole experience it's surreal. As a player, you're dreaming about that growing up, and just to be in it, the media day, the whole lead up to it, being on practice squad. I didn't play in the game, but just everything I did, I took a lot of pride in just kind of getting the team to the best position possible, get the DBs as ready as I could get them for that Super Bowl game. And the parade was awesome. I mean, you go, I think it was 0 degrees outside, wind chill was probably -20, and streets are lined up miles down the road, and you see how much pride is in this city when something like that happens. And for me, just running around, just being the guy out there, just having so much fun. You get to Union Station where the draft's gonna be held, and you see the sea of red, and just the amount of pride that's in the city. Like Kendall just said, I mean, everybody, once you get here, you really realize how special this place is, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy I was able to be a part of the championship team.
How many beers do you have on the parade route?
Too many.
Too many.
Too many is what Gehrig Dieter says.
Gehrig Dieter and Kendall Gammon, guys. Round of applause for this.